The Hermit and the Snakes. Deep in the forests near Benares, a kind old hermit named Meta lived in a peaceful ashram with his young students. They spent their days meditating, tending their garden, and learning about the ways of nature. But the forest was home to many snakes, and the young sages were terrified of them. Every time they saw a snake slither past, they would scream and run away. One day, the youngest student, Ananda, came running to Meta, shaking with fear. "Master, there are snakes everywhere. How can we live here safely?" Hermit Meta smiled gently and sat Ananda down beside him. "Tell me, child," he said, "have any of these snakes actually tried to hurt you?" Ananda thought carefully. "Well, no," he admitted. "But they look so scary." Meta laughed softly. "The snakes are just as afraid of you as you are of them. They live here in this forest, just as we do. They are our neighbors. And like all neighbors, we must learn to live together with kindness." Ananda looked confused. "But how can you be kind to a snake?" Meta led Ananda and the other young sages to a quiet clearing in the forest. He sat down cross-legged and placed a small bowl of warm milk at the edge of the clearing. Then he closed his eyes and began to chant softly. "I send my loving kindness to all creatures who share this forest. To the snakes of the east and west, to the snakes of the north and south. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be free from fear." The forest grew very still. And then, from the undergrowth, a magnificent golden cobra slowly emerged, its jeweled hood glistening in the sunlight. The young sages gasped and scrambled backward, but Meta remained perfectly still and calm. The golden cobra, Noga, the king of the forest snakes, slithered slowly toward the bowl of milk. He raised his magnificent hood and looked directly at Meta with intelligent amber eyes. Then something wonderful happened. Noga bowed his great head gently, as if acknowledging the hermit's kindness. He sipped the milk peacefully, and then turned to the frightened young sages. "Do not fear us," said Noga in a deep gentle voice. "We only strike when we are afraid." Over the following days, Meta taught his students the practice of loving kindness. Every morning and evening, they would sit together and send warm, loving thoughts to all the creatures of the forest. They also began leaving small offerings of milk and fruit at the edge of the clearing. Slowly, more snakes began to appear. A graceful silver-white snake named Silver came to drink from the bowls. Colorful forest snakes of every kind sunned themselves peacefully near the ashram. The young sages were amazed. The snakes never hissed or threatened them. One stormy night, heavy rains flooded the forest floor and destroyed the ashram's food stores. The young sages huddled together, cold, wet, and hungry. But in the morning, they found something extraordinary. During the night, the snakes had worked together to protect the ashram. Noga the Cobra King had coiled his great body around the grain storage, keeping it dry. Silver and the other snakes had formed a living wall around the herb garden, shielding it from the flood. The snakes had protected their human friends, just as the humans had shown kindness to them. Young Ananda knelt before the great Noga with tears of gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "I was so wrong to be afraid of you. You are the best neighbors we could ever have." Noga lowered his golden hood and gently touched his head to Ananda's outstretched hand. "Where there is loving kindness," Noga said softly, "there is no room for fear. Your master taught you well." From that day on, the sages and the snakes lived together as a family, each protecting the other. Word of the peaceful ashram spread far and wide. People came from distant villages to learn Meta's secret. "How do you live among dangerous snakes without fear?" they asked. Meta would smile and answer, "There are no dangerous creatures in this forest, only frightened ones. When you send loving kindness to all living beings, even those you fear the most, you will find that love is the greatest protection of all. For in all the world, there is no force stronger than a heart that chooses kindness over fear." Moral: loving kindness is the greatest protection. When you choose kindness over fear, even those you once feared become your friends. The Mongoose and the Snake. Deep in the lush green forests of the Himalayas, a wise hermit lived a simple, peaceful life. He spent his days meditating under tall trees, eating wild berries and roots, and walking along a quiet forest path. All the animals of the forest felt safe around him, for he radiated kindness and calm. But near the hermit's meditation path, there was a constant problem. A small brown mongoose lived in an anthill at one end, and a large cobra lived in a hollow tree at the other end. These two were the worst of enemies. Every single day they would hiss and snarl at each other, chasing and fighting through the bushes. The hermit watched their endless fighting and shook his head sadly. "My dear friends," he called out to them one day, "why do you spend your lives in anger and fear? Fighting brings nothing but misery. Come, sit with me, and let me tell you about the blessings of peace." The mongoose and the cobra stopped mid-chase and looked at the gentle hermit curiously. Day after day, the patient hermit spoke to them about kindness and forgiveness. He told them stories of how even the fiercest enemies had found happiness through peace. Slowly, the mongoose and the cobra began to listen. They stopped chasing each other. They stopped hissing and snarling. And one beautiful morning, they agreed to live side by side without fighting ever again. For a while, all was well. The forest was quiet and peaceful. The hermit smiled as he walked his path, happy that his two friends had found peace. But one evening, as the hermit passed by the anthill, he noticed something strange. The mongoose was lying at the entrance of his home with his mouth wide open and his sharp teeth showing even though he was fast asleep. The hermit knelt down and gently woke the mongoose. "Little friend," he asked, "the snake has promised to be your friend. You too have made peace. So why do you still sleep with your teeth bared, as if you are expecting an attack?" The mongoose looked up with his round, worried eyes and replied, "Dear hermit, never look down on an old enemy, and never fully trust even a friend. Danger can come from where you least expect it, and destroy everything you have." The hermit smiled gently and placed his hand near the mongoose. "I understand your caution, little one," he said. "But living in fear is not truly living. I have spoken to the snake, and he truly means you no harm. When you let go of fear, you make room for real happiness." The mongoose listened carefully, and for the first time, his tense body began to relax. From that day on, the mongoose slept peacefully, and the forest was filled with harmony. The mongoose and the cobra even began to greet each other as they passed on the path. The wise hermit continued his life of meditation and kindness, knowing that the greatest victory is not won through fighting, but through understanding and forgiveness. Moral: the greatest victory is not won through fighting, but through understanding, kindness, and forgiveness. The bull who wanted kind words. In the ancient city of Taxila, a kind-hearted Brahmin received a tiny bull calf to settle a debt. The moment he held the small, trembling creature in his arms, his heart melted with tenderness. He named the calf Nandavisala, meaning great joy, for that is exactly what the little one brought into his life. From that day forward, the Brahmin cared for Nandavisala as though the calf were his very own child. Every morning, the Brahmin prepared a special bowl of warm rice gruel for Nandavisala, mixed with the finest ingredients he could afford. He bathed the calf with his own hands, brushed his soft white coat until it gleamed, and spoke to him with the sweetest words of affection. "Eat well, my dear boy," the Brahmin would say, gently stroking the calf's head. Nandavisala grew stronger and bigger with each passing day, nourished not just by food, but by the boundless love of his devoted master. Seasons passed, and tiny Nandavisala grew into the mightiest bull in all the land. His body was enormous and powerful, with muscles that rippled beneath his gleaming white hide. His magnificent curved horns shone in the sunlight, and his expressive brown eyes held a gentle wisdom that amazed all who saw him. Despite his tremendous strength, Nandavisala remained gentle and kind, for he never forgot the love the Brahmin had shown him. In his heart burned a deep gratitude, and he longed to repay his beloved master's kindness. One evening, Nandavisala spoke to the Brahmin in a gentle voice. "Dear master, you have spent so much on my care, feeding me the finest food all these years. I wish to repay your kindness. Go to the wealthy merchant in the marketplace and wager 1,000 gold pieces that I can pull 100 loaded carts in a single line." The Brahmin's eyes widened in surprise, but trusting his beloved bull completely, he went to the merchant the very next day and made the bold wager. Word spread quickly, and soon the entire town gathered to witness the great contest. The great day arrived. 100 carts, loaded to the brim with heavy sand and stones, were lined up and tied together in a long chain. The crowd pressed forward with excitement. Nandavizala was yoked to the very first cart, his mighty frame ready for the pull. But then something terrible happened. The Brahmin, caught up in the nervousness of the moment, cracked his whip and shouted, "Pull, you rascal! Move, you rascal!" Nandavizala froze. Those cruel, stinging words cut deeper than any whip. He planted all 4 hooves firmly into the ground and refused to move a single step. The crowd murmured in disappointment. The wealthy merchant laughed smugly, his money pouch jingling as he collected his 1,000 gold pieces from the defeated Brahmin. The Brahmin hung his head in shame, tears stinging his eyes as he walked home empty-handed. He had lost everything. That evening, the Brahmin sat alone in his courtyard, heartbroken and bewildered, unable to understand why his beloved Nandavizala had let him down on the most important day of their lives. That night, under the pale moonlight, Nandavizala walked gently to the Brahmin and spoke softly. "Dear master, have I ever broken anything in your home? Have I ever been lazy or disobedient? Have I ever behaved badly?" The Brahmin shook his head. "Never, my dear one. Never once." Nandavizala's great brown eyes glistened with emotion. "Then why, master, did you call me a rascal? I who love you and wanted nothing more than to help you. Your harsh words broke my heart. Now listen carefully, go back to that merchant and bet TWO 1,000 gold pieces this time. But when you speak to me, speak with kindness." The Brahmin understood at last. He returned to the merchant with a new wager of 2,000 gold pieces. The crowd gathered once more, even larger than before. This time, the Brahmin gently stroked Nandavizala's great white neck and whispered lovingly, "Pull now, my fine fellow. Show them your strength, my beautiful, wonderful boy." Nandavizala's heart soared with joy. With a mighty bellow that shook the earth, the great bull lunged forward. His powerful muscles surged beneath his gleaming hide as he strained against the enormous weight of 100 loaded carts. With one tremendous, earth-shaking heave, Nandavizala pulled all 100 carts forward. The wheels groaned and turned, the chains rattled, and the impossibly long line of carts lurched into motion. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers, throwing flowers and showering the Brahmin with gifts. The merchant paid 2,000 gold pieces, stunned into silence. From that day forward, the Brahmin never again spoke a harsh word to Nandavizala or to anyone else. For he had learned the most precious lesson of all, that kind words can move mountains, while cruel ones cannot move even a willing heart. Moral: kind and respectful words achieve far more than harsh, insulting language. Even the strongest helper will refuse if treated with disrespect.